5 years of love, all gone in an instant. I am the woman of a mafia boss. After marriage, he spoiled me to the heavens, showcasing our love to major media outlets. I thought he loved me to the core. I couldn't help but declare my love for him to the whole world. Until I overheard his conversation with his subordinates. I operate in both the underworld and the upper world, with so many enemies. If I don't make Jodie my Achilles heel, how could Yaoyao possibly be safe? It turns out that all the injuries I suffered for him were just jokes. Since that's the case, let whoever wants to be the target take on that role. Brother, aren't you being too much? Big sister is still seriously injured, and that person just had a minor conflict with someone. You want to rush to see her? By doing this, you're putting both yourself and big sister in danger. From the crack in the wall, I heard the voice of brother Jason. I stopped in my tracks, stunned for a second. There are many soundproof rooms in the villa, and the sound insulation is quite good, unless the person speaking is particularly agitated. However, after a moment, I heard the sound of something being smashed again. What do you mean you only love Lucy? After all these years as a scapegoat, your sister-in-law deserves better. You don't love her at all, why not let her go? If it were that woman, you would have been ruined long ago. Shut up. If I don't make Jodie my Achilles heel, how could Yaoyao possibly be safe? After being Mrs. Gu for so many years, I haven't treated her poorly. Jason's voice was clear and deep. I leaned against the wall, struggling to digest the news I had just received. After all these years, Jason loved someone else? And I was just a scapegoat? I stumbled back to my room, the wound on my abdomen from the injury I sustained for him tearing open, blood seeping out, but the pain in my body was nothing compared to the ache in my heart. The apples that Jason had carefully sliced for me by the bedside seemed like a joke. He was so good to me, so extravagantly good, that everyone envied it. Jason has many businesses on the border, straddling both the legal and illegal worlds. Over the past 5 years, I have been kidnapped 3 times because of him, taken a knife for him twice, and taken a bullet once. For him, I would even give up my life. I thought he loved me to the bone, but it was all a lie. Did you just go out? Jason's voice suddenly rang out behind me. I faced him with tears streaming down my face, looking into his smiling phoenix eyes. I have secretly rejoiced countless times, wondering how I was lucky enough to marry such a handsome man. But now, I actually saw a chilling coldness in his eyes. Jodie, are you afraid of me? Where did you just go? He is really too smart, and I forced a smile. I just woke up, and seeing you not here scared me so much that I haven't recovered yet. It only took one night for an ordinary student to become the woman of a big shot. After experiencing my first kidnapping, I developed a lingering fear. As long as I couldn't see Jason, I would tremble in fear. He didn't suspect anything, gently caressing my lips. His long fingers lightly traced my jaw, teasing by my ear, then climbed onto my neck, trailing down my spine. I couldn't help but take a breath. The mischievous hand finally rested on my waist, the warmth from his palm igniting every inch of my skin. Tomorrow, I will be gone for a day, you behave and stay at home. He lightly kissed the corner of my lips, his words turning into warm breath, spraying against my ear. I couldn't help but shiver, gripping his clothes tightly. Jason, the wound, the wound. His expression changed, and in a swift motion, he stripped me bare, looking at the blood-soaked bandage, his beautiful brows furrowing deeply. Jodie, do you really want me to worry myself to death? He personally changed my bandages. The urgency in his brows and eyes was not feigned. But the words I just heard kept echoing in my mind. He was going to be away for a day. What was he planning to do during that time? Was he going to see the one I had protected with my life? That night, Jason held me tightly, sleeping soundly. Yet I was wide awake all night, and it wasn't until he left the next day, confirming that he had boarded the plane, that I finally opened my eyes. The distance from the room to the study is only a short stretch. In his small study at home, he has neatly arranged all the items related to me. From our first anniversary to my most recent birthday, every detail has been meticulously displayed. Anyone who sees it would marvel at his deep affection for me. Only I know that in the hidden compartment of the drawer, there is a diary that does not belong to me. It was Jason who told me this after getting drunk. That day he said a lot of apologies to me. But at that time, my heart and eyes were filled with him, and I didn't take it to heart at all. And the next day, he woke up and forgot that he had said it to me. I opened the hidden compartment and brushed the dust off the diary. The password on it was very intricate, indicating that the owner of the diary valued it greatly. I never thought that the cryptography I studied in college would come in handy at this moment. The password popped open, and on the first page, Jason's strong and vigorous handwriting wrote 3 words, Lucy. The first 10 pages are all about how he loves Lucy. Between the lines, so careful, passionate yet timid, it was something I had never seen before. He has always been at ease with me. I thought he had matured and would no longer be as passionate as in his youth. It turns out he doesn't love me. The last page is written in a messy scrawl. Yaoyao was assassinated. She was right, those of us in this line of work should never have lovers in this lifetime. I will send her off. At the back, it turned into a yellow layer. The writing above became less and less. The little girl is so easy to deceive. I thought of Yaoyao today. The little girl thinks I am talking about her. That's fine, let her misunderstand. This way, Yaoyao will be safe. If she could be my wife, even if she were to be killed, she probably wouldn't mind. I will be punished. I arranged a kidnapping, everything was under control. She indeed reacted, and for this lifetime, she can never leave me. I will spend my life compensating her. I pressed my eyes tightly, afraid that tears would fall. It turns out that the person he wanted to be with openly and honestly was never me. Our meeting, our love, our marriage, our happiness, from the beginning until now, has all been my own Truman Show. Closing the diary, I carefully put it back in its place, and only then did I dare to let the tears fall as I curled up into a ball. A scene from the first time I was kidnapped flashed through my mind. At that time, Jason and I were inseparable. I had just come out of the hospital and wanted to tell him the good news about my pregnancy, but as soon as I got into a car, I lost consciousness. That group of beasts dragged me along the ground, the excessive cold and cruel torture prevented me from keeping the fetus. When Jason rushed in and held me in his arms, I was left with only a vague consciousness. It was also then that I developed a mental illness, unable to be away from Jason for long, and my body completely deteriorated. Jason comforted me by saying it was okay not to have a child. It turned out that he never intended to have a child with me from the very beginning, and it was he who personally severed all my possibilities. The redemption and deep affection I thought I had turned out to be his self-directed scheme. The pain in my chest made it impossible for me to breathe. I couldn't resist the physical reaction and collapsed on the bed, convulsing repeatedly. In this extreme pain, I gradually calmed down instead. Every detail of being with Jason kept flashing in my mind. Over these 5 years, I have experienced countless life and death situations, and he has spared no effort to save me each time, even at the cost of his own life. His concern for me is genuine. It's just that he fears if I die, the danger will fall on the white moonlight. I trembled as I picked up my phone and checked Jason's transaction records over the years. He has a company overseas that mainly deals in jewelry. All the gifts he has given me over the years came from that company. That company does not make a profit externally. The annual revenue, apart from the 1 billion Jason regularly transfers, consists of other amounts allocated by the Gu family group. The scope of involvement is quite broad, and every one of his products appears on that woman named Lucy. I saw Lucy's account on Facebook. She has been living quite well in her seaside villa, and in her latest update, she is holding hands with a man. The caption reads, "My dearest you, the world's apart." I keep enlarging the picture. The man is wearing a red ruby ring on his ring finger, just like Lucy's, and there is a circle of white marks on his wrist. Jason once told me that he doesn't like wearing rings, so at the wedding ceremony, there was everything except for rings. I really thought he didn't like it, so I personally made a bracelet and put it on his wrist. That day, he lowered his head and kissed the bracelet, saying it was his talisman and that he would never take it off. But as soon as he saw Lucy, he took off the bracelet. It's not that he doesn't like wearing rings, he just doesn't like wearing them with me. I continued to scroll down, and on February 14th, Jason gave Lucy a sapphire necklace, made from the best part of a whole sapphire, intricately carved. That day, Jason also gave me a necklace made of blue diamonds. On July 7th, Jason bought the best few pieces of fragrant cloud silk and made a whole set of clothes for Lucy. That day, Jason gave me a fragrant cloud silk scarf. As I turned the pages, I buried myself in the pillow, silently convulsing with laughter. My pulse seemed to stop beating in such madness. In Jason's eyes, I was just a leftover of Lucy, a scapegoat. All the gifts he gave me were merely afterthoughts, prepared with care for Lucy. 5 years of love, all gone in an instant. I cried all night. During that time, Jason sent me a message. I used to think he loved me, wanting to know my news every day. Now I realize, he is afraid that I, the scapegoat, will run away. Since that's the case, how can I let him have his way? Early the next morning, I contacted a lawyer and asked him to cancel all my identity information as quickly as possible. Jason came back in the middle of the night, and as soon as he entered the room, he eagerly buried his face in my shoulder. "Jodie, did you miss me? I couldn't sleep a wink last night without you." His eyes were completely dark, looking as if he really hadn't slept all night. In the past, I would have been very touched. But now I dare not move. Clearly, the one he loves is not me, and this deep affection of his makes me feel disgusted by its pretentiousness. "Are you shy?" He chuckled softly, lowering his head, and with a strong pull, he dragged me into his embrace, forcing a soft moan from my lips. I felt like his doll, completely disregarded whether I was asleep or not. Tears slipped from the corners of my eyes, quickly absorbed by the pillow, as if sadness had never come. Early the next morning, as soon as I opened my eyes, I saw Jason's dark expression. Thinking of his reputation outside, I shrank back in fear. "Your phone rang, what did you cancel?" I hurriedly looked down at my phone. It was a message from the lawyer. "He has already taken care of my identity cancellation, in 3 hours, it will take effect." I forced a smile. "It's nothing, just an email account I used before. I left it inactive for too long, worried it might be reclaimed and leave traces, so I just cancelled it directly." "Oh." Jason leaned in meaningfully, his large hand gripping the back of my head, stealing every breath from me until I had no strength left and collapsed in his embrace. "Jodie, don't lie to me, don't betray me." I nodded desperately, tears welling in my eyes. An overwhelming fear made my fingertips go cold. Soon I would be able to escape from him. Soon, there would be no Jodie by Jason's side anymore. Fortunately, my phone rang just in time, and Jason didn't take another step closer. "What? You say Yaoyao is back? Who let her come? Wait for me, I'm going right now." Jason's voice was grim as he walked away quickly, not even giving me a glance. I kept telling myself to breathe. Before I leave, I still have one thing to do. Even if I cancel my identity, I don't want the name Jodie to be associated with Jason. After adjusting my emotions, I received a text from the private detective. The string of numbers on it is Lucy's phone number. "Hello, I am Jason's wife. Let's meet." The meeting place was chosen by Lucy. It's at the largest hotel in the city. Through a screen, I heard heavy breathing. "Can't you listen to me? I'm not safe here." I have seen Jason's coldness, his tenderness, every side of him, but it was the first time I heard his helpless voice. "I miss you so much, I'm about to get married, and you still won't see me. Have you really fallen in love with your wife? Don't talk nonsense, I'm only doing this to keep you safe." After they exchanged sweet words, Jason finally left. He has always been vigilant, but this time, he surprisingly didn't notice that there was another person outside the screen. I couldn't see my own expression, but it must have been bitter and sarcastic. "Jason is gone, you really are pitiful, but as a fellow woman, I still want to hear you talk. Lucy walked out from behind the screen, her eyes gleaming with the pride of a victor. Her skin was rosy, and her outfit was both appropriate and flattering, the exposed skin like white jade. I looked down at my casual clothes. Ever since being with Jason, I haven't dared to wear anything pretty because I lack the courage to show the scars on my body. Frequent injuries make me look much weaker than Lucy. She just stood there, sizing me up from head to toe, and that alone was the greatest mockery. I'm not here to compete with you for Jason. I've been by his side long enough, he may not be without feelings for me. After so many years with Jason, I've also learned to wield power through others. You came to see me today to make me retreat, didn't you? I know I can't compete with you, I just want his autograph as a keepsake. As I left the hotel, my steps felt much lighter. For the past 2 days, I have tried every means to cling to Jason, from his initial cooperation to his eventual impatience. But it doesn't matter, as long as I can achieve my goal. 2 days later, Lucy indeed gave me a signature. When I saw the signature, I breathed a sigh of relief and quickly went to print the divorce agreement. Early on the 3rd day, my identity was completely cancelled. I organized all the gifts Jason had given me, along with that diary, and placed them in the most conspicuous spot in the villa. It's better for these scraps belonging to others to return to their rightful owner. As for all my belongings, they were burned to ashes just before I stepped onto the plane. In the waiting lounge, I opened my phone and sent a message to Lucy, just 2 words, "Thank you." Just as my phone was about to shut down, Jason's text popped up in the notification bar. "Baby, I'm almost home. The birthday cake is ready, it's your favorite strawberry cake. I'm sorry, baby, Lucy is feeling a bit unwell, and she's all alone here. I need to go check on her." The phone shut down completely, and the dark screen couldn't display the rest of his message. But I didn't need to look anymore, I knew he was going to be with Lucy. I crushed my SIM card and threw it into the trash can as I stepped onto the plane with the boarding announcement. Meanwhile, in the ballroom, Lucy lay weakly on Jason, her face flushed with the alcohol's influence. "Jason, I'm fine. You should go back to Jodie. It's my fault for being willful, I couldn't help but think of you and called you." Tears filled her eyes. Jason's phone was right beside him, dimly lit. It wasn't until they left the ballroom that he noticed the dozens of missed calls on his phone. At the moment the call connected, his brother Ivan's voice trembled with panic. "Big brother. A lawyer came to the company to deliver the divorce agreement. Sister-in-law found out about your relationship with Miss Lucy. We can't get through to sister-in-law at all. We can't reach her through any channel." Jason suddenly tightened his grip on the phone. The words "divorce agreement" spun in his mind. He never expected that I would actually divorce him. After all, when we were together, I loved him so much that I would have given my life for him. "What did you say? Say it again." Jason's voice was very slow and low. Ivan on the other end of the phone was so scared that he couldn't even manage to hide it, his voice was tinged with tears. "Brother, I really can't get in touch with sister-in-law. Just now a lawyer came by, threw down the divorce agreement and left. There's also a property division agreement behind it, which includes the company you set up for Miss Lucy abroad. Will sister-in-law find out that you used her as a shield? She has been by your side for 5 years and knows quite a bit. If she gets angry and exposes it, then we brothers will." "Shut up." Waves of irritation crashed against Jason's heart like the tide. "I'll deal with it when I get back." "Jason, what happened?" Lucy tugged at the hem of his shirt. Jason suppressed his annoyance and tapped a few times on his phone. "Jodie is missing, I'll have someone take you to the hotel." A fleeting look of joy flashed in Lucy's eyes as she leaned softly against Jason. "It's just a target, Jason. I'm feeling so upset." "Let them go look for her, can you stay with me? Don't be willful." Jason's face turned cold as he allowed his men to drag Lucy out of the passenger seat. His attitude left Lucy in disbelief. Clearly, before, whenever she acted cute, Jason would unconditionally compromise. Jason had done it more than once, leaving me behind when I was severely injured and on the brink of death to go abroad with her. This time I was just missing, yet he ignored her completely. Did you marry her just to protect me? Jason, how can you disregard my feelings because of her? Lucy's voice grew fainter. Jason slammed the steering wheel hard. He pressed the accelerator to the floor. Amid the howling wind, he kept reminding himself, I am just a target, a scapegoat. He is anxious only because he fears I will expose him. But at the moment I opened the villa door, Jason stood at the entrance, not daring to move. Everything about me in the house had been cleaned out completely. Only at the entrance was there a neat arrangement of all the gifts he had given me, along with that unlocked diary. He picked up the unlocked notebook. It felt as if even breathing had come to a halt. Big brother. Ivan appeared behind him, holding the documents sent by the lawyer. He flipped through the pages one by one. From the divorce agreement to the proof of his infidelity. And all the gifts he had given to Lucy. Finally, there was the proof of my clean break. Each page mocked this marriage. Compared to the gifts he gave to Lucy, the ones he once gave me, now sitting beside him, had turned into endless indifference. He ran his fingers through his hair, his emotions so complex that even he couldn't describe them. Scenes from the past surfaced in his mind. Jason painfully buried his head in his hands, and even he, who usually kept his emotions in check, could not control his breathing. Ivan saw his expression and couldn't help but speak up. Brother, I told you long ago that treating your sister-in-law this way would make you regret it sooner or later. She's such a good woman. We all know you've liked her for a long time, it's just you who won't admit it. If you had confessed your mistakes to your sister-in-law earlier, she would definitely have forgiven you. Ivan was startled by the sudden intensity of Jason's gaze. How does your sister-in-law know the password? Jason's voice was hoarse as he waved the diary in front of Ivan. He wondered if I would have left if I hadn't seen this diary. He suspected that someone was sabotaging me. It wasn't until Ivan mentioned the cryptography I studied in college, and that Jason was the one who accompanied me to collect my diploma. Only then did he show a look of surprise, quickly followed by a hint of pain. He never wanted to keep my matters in his heart. That kind of superficial perfunctoriness was something I, immersed in love, foolishly believed in. Go find her, no matter the cost, bring Jodie back. Ivan hesitated and did not leave. Sister-in-law must have left because her heart was deeply hurt. Go find her. Jason emphasized his voice. Jason sat in the silent, soundless home. Each breath became a torment for him. The jewelry made from scraps became his last solace for missing me. Jason placed his hand on the jewelry, only to pull back as if cut by a sharp blade. The diary was rustling in the wind, its pages flipping one by one, as if someone were reading it. A hazy image of myself appeared before him, standing in the study, seeing the despair on my face when I looked at this diary. Clearly, when he wrote this diary, he intended to remind himself not to forget his original intention, to immerse himself in this emotion he had shaped with his own hands. Jodie, why didn't I see it clearly? All these thousands of days and nights, I had already fallen in love with you. Jason looked at the diary, murmuring to himself. Tears fell uncontrollably as he buried his head in his hands. It was regret, it was sadness, he wished he could kill the Jason from back then to make up for it all. By the time Jason's people arrived at the airport, the plane had already taken off. No matter how powerful they were, they could not force the plane to stop. As the plane ascended, I watched them become a small black dot. When it pierced through the clouds, I could no longer see the city I had lived in for so many years. Jason, goodbye, never to see you again. I had already bought a house by the sea, preparing to open a flower shop. I have told Jason countless times, but he is always busy. Now, Jason doesn't need to explain anything to me, and I can finally fulfill my own dreams. Jason only found my discarded phone at the airport. Inside the villa. Ivan handed the phone to Jason. Big brother, this is all we got. Jason took the phone and the broken SIM card. He opened the phone and just received the message he sent me before I left. Jason, where are you? It hurts so much. Why can't I stand up? Are you back? It hurts so much. Can you bring me a strawberry cake? It hurts too much, eating something sweet might help. Jason, I really love you so much, even a little less love, I can't bear this much pain. Jason scrolled through the messages one by one, his face expressionless, but tears flowed uncontrollably down his cheeks. In my communication with him, most of the time, we were just saying how much it hurt. From the very beginning until now, I have always had new wounds piled on top of old ones. There were assassination attempts from enemies, and he deliberately schemed to make me a target for Lucy. There were even times when he had his subordinates beat me up for the sake of acting and competing for interests. All these dangers and torments were brought to me by him. At that time, he was still feeling smug, easily deceiving me, a naive and innocent girl, with just a few sweet words. Go find her again, no matter where Jodie is, you must bring her back. I want to see her. Jason's voice trembled. He had made up his mind, even if I was on his enemy's turf, he didn't care. Brother, what's the use of crying? Sister-in-law can't come back. Ivan couldn't help but speak up. And what do you plan to say to sister-in-law when you see her? To let her come back and continue being a shield for Miss Lucy? Everything you did was for Miss Lucy. Now that your sister-in-law has left, isn't it just the right time for you to marry Miss Lucy? Jason shook his head slowly. Lucy is about to get married, she has nothing to do with me. My wife is Jodie, was in the past, and will be in the future. Brother, isn't it a bit late for you to say that? Ivan's voice suddenly became hoarse, and his eyes turned red. The signature on the divorce agreement, I have already had someone check it, it is your own signature. Your sister-in-law has long ceased to be your wife. She didn't know your plan, but now that she does, why do you still want to disturb her? Even if my sister-in-law is willing to forgive and live this life of swords and spears with you, can you truly find peace in your conscience? Jason pressed his hand against his chest, he never considered my feelings. But now these words came from his brother's mouth. Jason fell silent. He gradually recalled the moment we first met. I held the flowers and told him that I liked a quiet life, 3 meals a day, the warmth of human life, raising 2 or 3 little cats, living in a house facing the sea, watching the sunset. Ever since we got together, I haven't had a day like this. And what about Miss Lucy? What do you plan to do? If your sister-in-law is willing to come back, how will you let her face Miss Lucy? Or do you plan to silence me as well, expel me too, and then tell your sister-in-law that after being Mrs. Gu for so many years, you haven't treated her unfairly? Jason suddenly stood up, staring at Ivan, and after a long pause, he only uttered 2 words, go find. Everyone left, and the room fell silent in an instant. A wave of fear surged in Jason's heart as he downed bottle after bottle of alcohol. The next moment, which was almost hallucinatory, was clarity. He scrolled through his phone countless times, those messages he had once grown tired of now became rare treasures. For several days, Jason only answered calls related to me, even hanging up on calls from Lucy. The phone rang once. Jason almost jumped out of bed, lunging for my phone. The moment he could grab his phone, he indeed saw the message sent by Lucy. Jodie, I underestimated you, you actually used the method of disappearing to trick Jason completely. But since you've left, make sure to hide well, when you reappear, don't blame me for being ruthless. And above these 2 provocative warning messages is the one I sent to Lucy, thank you. The message was sent on the very day I left. Jason immediately sensed something was wrong and quickly found Lucy. She was delicate as she lunged at Jason, who coldly stepped back. What did you say to Jodie? Why did Jodie thank you? Lucy was frightened by Jason's coldness, but she quickly reacted and shook her head anxiously. What could I possibly say to Jodie? You don't think her leaving was forced by me, do you? Jason looked at her in disappointment and took out my phone. The screen displayed the provocative message sent by Lucy. Lucy's phone was snatched away by Jason's men. Jason saw on it that she had invited me to the hotel, saw how she deceived Jason into signing, and warned me to disappear forever. All the clues had answers now. For the first time, Jason looked at her with a murderous intent. No, Jason, you married her not to protect me? You should love me, not a substitute, not a target. Lucy was so frightened that she took a step back. She tried to stir up Jason's affection. Jason suddenly stepped forward, gripping Lucy's neck from behind. Their breaths mingled, but there was only fear, no ambiguity. You're right, I will love you well from now on, Jason said hoarsely, ignoring Lucy's cries, and strode away. The whole world knows that the person Jason loves deeply is Lucy, while I am just an innocent target. That day, Lucy was called off from her engagement by her fiancé's family. Those who targeted Jason turned their attention to Lucy. Everything I had once endured was replaying in her. Half a month later, when I learned of Lucy's death, I was watching little ducklings take their first wobbly steps. The news was brought to me by a regular customer. She admired the flowers, lamenting the impermanence of life. I also expressed a few sentiments. Lucy, Jason, these two names felt like they belonged to another world. Jodie. A voice called out, and I turned around, my expression instantly turning cold. Jason rushed over quickly, and just as I closed the shop door, he reached his hand in. In an instant, his fingers turned a shade of purple blue. He gritted his teeth, unwilling to back down even though sweat was pouring down from the pain. Can I just say a few words to you? Jason's voice was almost pleading. The surrounding customers also turned to look. I had no choice but to open the door and let him in. After calming the customers, I poured a cup of coffee and placed it in front of him. It was only then that I had the chance to carefully examine him. In just a short month, it felt as if he had lived for 10 years. His hair was faintly gray, and he had heavy dark circles under his eyes, clearly showing that he wasn't doing well. But I don't understand, he loves Lucy so much, I've already stepped aside, so why is he still not doing well? Jodie, do you really not love me anymore? His eyes were filled with tears as he began with this sentence. I stared at him in silence. I didn't even know how to respond to him. Perhaps, from the very beginning, I didn't love him, but rather the Jason who was shaped by him, deeply in love with Jodie. Staying by his side and doing these things for him was also for that Jason who loved me. Seeing that I was silent, Jason seemed quite affected. Jodie, if in the future, I won't let you suffer any harm, I really love you, would you still be willing to go back with me? He looked at me with anticipation. I instinctively leaned back against the chair, creating distance between us. Are you planning to find an innocent girl to take my place? In the end, will she meet the same tragic fate as I did before, like Lucy does now? Jason's pupils trembled, staring at me in disbelief, as if my words had inflicted a great wound on him. Is this how you see me in your heart? I fell silent. What else could it be? What kind of person did he think he was? He is nothing but a self-proclaimed romantic, a demon who inflicts all his pain upon others. When in love, it is as deep as marrow, willing to sacrifice everything. When not in love, there is not a shred of mercy. Jason suddenly avoided my gaze. We sat in silence, continuing until the sun set in the west. As the last trace of crimson completely faded, Jason sighed deeply. Jodie, I suppose I've accompanied you to watch a sunset. I looked at him in surprise, not expecting that he still remembered my past wish. I hoped he could accompany me to watch the sunset. Unfortunately, at that time, Jason was willing to give me everything, except for his time. Now this companionship has finally arrived. But I am no longer willing to feel it, and I only feel a pain in my waist. Jason once again avoided my gaze. As he reached the door of the shop, he suddenly turned back to look at me. Jodie, I am willing to give up everything, my identity, my possessions, everything just to live incognito with you, to accompany you to the ends of the earth, to watch the sunrise and sunset, to plant flowers, raise chickens, and cook 3 meals a day. Would you still be willing? He looked at me, trembling with anxiety, just as I had when I spoke those words to him. But this time I was the one refusing. I have already achieved it myself, the things Jason lost can never be reclaimed. You go chase your moonlight, and I will pick up my sixpence. It was so before, it is so now, and it will be so in the future. For example, the Jodie who once loved Jason so deeply can never return. Jason once again avoided my gaze. This time he left in a fluster, not even able to wait for me to finish speaking. In the days that followed, Jason often called me, but I never picked up even once. Later, he wrote to me through various channels. Often, there were thoughtless kids who would come and read the letters to me. He said he had loved me for a long time, deeply, yet was unaware of it. He said that without seeing me for a day, he couldn't even sleep. I had long since merged into his very marrow, becoming every part of his life. I listened to his ramblings. At first, I would have the child respond to him, telling him not to disturb me, that there was no possibility left between us. Later, I simply moved away. Once again on a plane, I felt somewhat annoyed and decided to move to the territory of Jason's arch-rival. I thought this would bring me peace. A year later, I still went to see Jason. At his funeral. I never expected Jason to pass away so young. Who would have thought? A year ago, Jason seemed to have gone mad, starting to take revenge on everyone. I heard it was for his girlfriend, Lucy. Everyone was lamenting his feelings for Lucy. But only I knew that the place where he ultimately died was not far from my villa. Sister-in-law. Miss Jodie. I turned around to see Ivan standing not far away, waving at me. He entered the room, his eyes red, and handed me a box. Actually, that night, my brother wanted to see you one more time, but he discovered someone was following him on the way. I pressed my lips together, my condolences. Sister-in-law, my brother knows he has wronged you. These things are all left for you, all his assets are entrusted to you. Before he died, he entrusted me with a message to tell you. He begs you, please don't hate him. As the words fell, Ivan was already crying uncontrollably. Even after leaving Jason's funeral that day, I still didn't give Ivan an answer. I can't help but hate him, after all, he buried my youth. All the assets Jason left me have been donated to society. I retook my doctoral exams, and everything became a new beginning.